Now have surveillance video from a department store. Kelsey Smith hasn't been seen since.
We found Kelsey, the sticks and branches over.
On June 2nd, 2007, the beautiful city of Overland Park, Kansas, was shaken to its core when a young girl disappeared without a trace. In 16 seconds, the city was plunged into panic as they worried about the fate of the 18-year-old. Last seen at 7:07 p.m. on security cameras at a local Target store, the disappearance of Kelsey Ann Smith shook the city. But what happened? Where was she? And how did she unearth the evil that lurked in even the most quiet of towns? Born on May 3rd, 1989, Kelsey Ann Smith was more than just a name in a news story. She was a vibrant young woman with dreams, aspirations, and a loving spirit that touched the lives of those around her. Born and raised in a close-knit family, Kelsey grew up surrounded by love and support. Her parents, Greg, a police officer and Navy veteran, and Missy, a local worker, had always hammered into her the importance of kindness, perseverance, integrity, and most importantly, punctuality from a young age.
She frequently spoke of giving American Idol a shot. One day out of the blue, she said, "Dad, how would you feel if I tried out for that Coyote Ugly Girl contest?"
Kelsey, as an individual, was passionate about sports, theater, and spending time with her friends. She had an infectious laughter and a bright smile that could light up any room she entered. Kelsey was the life of the party, with a big personality and a love for surprises. So much so that she often kept her talents, like her knack for musical theater, under wraps until she could make a big reveal on stage.
Passionate and outspoken. You always knew what she was thinking. If you didn't, she would tell you.
However, despite her busy schedule at Shawnee Mission West High School, where she played clarinet in the marching band, sang in the choir, acted in theater productions, and ran track, Kelsey always made time for her friends, often bringing them home for lunch as her house wasn't far from the school. But that wasn't all, because she was a massive fan of birthdays and was known for bringing balloons for friends' birthdays. She was not just a daughter and a sister to 4 siblings. She was a cherished friend, a pillar of strength, and a source of joy for those who knew her.
I just want everybody to know how she was a bright crayon in a box. I mean, she was just the most lovable, fun person that you could ever hang out with.
One of the things that I really loved about her is if you were her friend, or even sometimes, even if she didn't know you, she always had your back for everything. She did. And so now, Kelsey, we've got your back. We've got everybody else's too. So thank you for being there for us, Kels.
Coming up in a few minutes, we'll check back with Jerry Gish live, hear what Kelsey's parents have to say about their daughter's legacy. That's coming up in about 10 minutes.
So here's a look at what's next in the Kelsey Smith murder case. Edwin Hall's sentencing is scheduled for September 16th. At that time, he'll be sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. And as part of the plea agreement, Hall cannot appeal. Count on KMBC 9 News for...
Knew her. It tells you what kind of person she was. It's all about her. And that was part of the reason for the plea, so we could get the focus off Edwin. He doesn't matter. Kelsey matters.
That focus even led to a lighter moment.
Kelsey was also extremely responsible, buying her own car, a bargain 1987 Buick Regal, and working part-time jobs at a local vet clinic and a movie theater, where she met her boyfriend John. The two were inseparable, and their relationship was so tight that Kelsey even turned down a promotion that would pay her a lot more money to stay close to him. After graduating in 2007, Kelsey faced the decision to attend either Kansas University or Kansas State. Staying true to her character, she surprised everyone by choosing Kansas, announcing it during senior night arm in arm with her parents. Although torn between human and veterinary medicine, her family suspected she leaned toward veterinary care due to her love for animals. All in all, Kelsey was a joy to be around, and everyone had high hopes for her future. However, all that would change on the evening of June 2nd, 2007. See, the day started with a bang as Kelsey and her siblings, amidst the hustle and bustle of graduation parties, joined their dad at Old Shawnee Days, a beloved carnival tradition. It was a fun family day, and that was not her only plan, as later that day, Kelsey had plans with John to celebrate their 6-month anniversary. See, John had gotten a promise ring to surprise her. Of course, Kelsey didn't know that yet, and also still needed to find a gift for him. So after telling her dad she loved him, she dashed to visit her local Target. It was going to be a quick in-and-out stop, but sadly that wasn't the case. Hurrying to the closest Target, which was just an 8-minute drive from her home, Kelsey got there around 7 p.m. and began to browse around. See, she needed to pick up something for John before their 7:30 date. While browsing through the store, she decided on a scrapbook for him, but also decided to get him a box for him to keep his cards because John's mom had recently accidentally thrown a card that she gave him away, and she was trying to avoid another accident like that. Kelsey, however, needed her mom's advice on finding a box for his cards. Unfortunately, Missy was on her way back from a wedding in Iowa and was dealing with a broken down van. Despite the time crunch, Kelsey called her mom, bought what she needed, and checked out shortly after 7 p.m.
Find the car across the street from the Target, and all of her stuff is in there. Her purchases, her purse, but she's not there.
Everything seemed normal, except as 7:30 approached. Kelsey still hadn't made it home, nor had she met up with John. Concerned, her sister Lindsay contacted their mom, who had spoken to Kelsey earlier. Missy advised Lindsay to call John and find out about Kelsey. It was then that panic set in, as he too hadn't seen her. With Greg's background in law enforcement, the family knew the importance of punctuality and communication. Kelsey's absence was out of character, and out of fear, they quickly called the local authorities and hospitals to check for any accidents or emergencies involving her car. By 8 p.m., John and Lindsay had even gone back to Target to look for her vehicle. Kelsey's family had strict rules about punctuality. For every minute you were late, you were grounded for 2 weeks. This might seem strict, but it was the whole reason why they took her absence so seriously. Kelsey had always been reliable, even leaving messages on the home answering machine if she was running late. Around 9:30 p.m., Kelsey's grandparents joined the search, and thankfully, her grandma spotted her car in the Macy's parking lot, about half a mile from Target. At around 9:45 to 10 p.m., Greg called law enforcement to report the discovery. Missy, who had returned by then, and the rest of the family gathered by the car, but Greg insisted no one touch it until law enforcement arrived to process any potential evidence thoroughly. While waiting for the authorities, Missy scoured the area outside the mall, searching dumpsters and bushes for any sign of Kelsey. Despite their frantic efforts and continued attempts to call Kelsey's phone, she wasn't picking up, and it eventually went straight to voicemail. When law enforcement finally arrived, they carefully searched the car and found a paper grocery bag handle sticking out of the trunk. Upon seeing it, fear gripped everyone as they feared the worst. Thankfully, Kelsey wasn't inside. Although this was a breath of fresh air, the truth was sadly much worse, and Kelsey was still missing. As the search continued, the absence of Kelsey's phone and keys, along with her purse left behind in the car, raised serious concerns as law enforcement meticulously dusted for fingerprints and collected evidence, including the Target bag she had left in the car. Eventually, they towed the car to the Johnson County Crime Lab for further investigation. And although law enforcement advised the family to return home for the night, Missy refused to leave. She insisted they go to the police station for questioning to aid in the search efforts. As the search went on, the community rallied behind the missing teen, with local news stations picking up the story and a tip line even being set up. Sadly, as the county grappled with the shocking disappearance, Greg struggled more as he tried to balance his roles as both a law enforcement officer and a father. To make things worse, he couldn't directly work on the investigation and was forced to support the efforts to find his daughter, who seemed to have vanished without a trace in other ways. Kelsey's family, desperate for any clue, reached out to Sprint, hoping they could track her phone despite having a Verizon plan. Unfortunately, due to federal laws, Verizon couldn't provide the phone's last location. Instead, they repeatedly tried to sell the family more minutes, oblivious to their urgent need for information. Meanwhile, law enforcement accessed Target's security footage. The footage showed Kelsey entering the store at 6:55 p.m., chatting with her mom on the phone, and checking out before leaving. But upon closer inspection, something alarming emerged, as a man in a white shirt seemed to shadow Kelsey throughout her visit, and after she exited, a blurry figure appeared to push her into a car, which sped off just 16 seconds later.
Authorities now have surveillance video from outside a department store that shows Kelsey Smith being forced into her own car. She hasn't been seen since. Cops found the vehicle at a shopping mall 2 hours after the initial incident, but Smith, along with her cell phone and ATM card, had gone missing.
With a potential suspect identified, law enforcement broadcast the footage on the news and marketed the tip line. However, despite the crowded store, no witnesses came forward, but some tips did stand out. For example, a woman previously assaulted at City River Market identified the man in the footage as her attacker, while another tip from a restaurant in the same mall parking lot described his inappropriate behavior and dine-and-dash antics earlier that evening. Additionally, a co-worker of a 26-year-old man named Edwin Hall recognized his truck in the footage. Suspiciously, Edwin abruptly left work after that, claiming illness. As the hours ticked on, more tips poured in, including one from a neighbor who noticed Edwin's resemblance to the man in the footage and recalled seeing his truck in a similar location. On June 6th, investigators arrived at Edwin's home to question him, only to find his family packing their car as if leaving town. Living in Olathe, just neighboring Overland Park, they were stopped by officers, and Edwin was brought in for questioning, accompanied by his attorney. Despite denying involvement, both Edwin and his attorney consented to his fingerprints being taken, and during the interrogation, Edwin initially claimed he hadn't noticed Kelsey in Target. However, his story would soon change as he later admitted to noticing her and making disturbing comments about her appearance. Meanwhile, Verizon sent an engineer to assist with tracing Kelsey's phone using cell site location information, which narrowed down her last location. Within 45 minutes, her body was discovered near Longview Lake in Grandview, Missouri, making the case a multi-state crime. As Edwin was held on a minor charge related to a dine-and-dash incident, a fingerprint match linked him to Kelsey's car, leading to his arrest for her murder. Upon hearing the news, Kelsey's parents were devastated, and the community rallied around them, with hundreds attending her visitation. As more details emerged, it became clear that Edwin had been targeting women that day, and followed Kelsey to the target. Armed with an airsoft gun, he forced her into her car and drove off. Tragically, Kelsey fought back, but Edwin subjected her to a brutal assault and used a belt to strangle her as he sexually assaulted her. He used the belt to choke her until she was blacking out and then loosened it so she was barely awake to fight back. Ultimately, he ended up strangling her to death. After committing the heinous crime, he fled the scene, dumping her body in the woods. Surprisingly, he callously attempted to cover his tracks by calling a local health center for advice on removing ticks from a body. After the call, he returned to the crime scene with bleach and tried to wash away all of the evidence. However, he was not successful, as DNA evidence, including Edwin's DNA on the steering wheel and Kelsey's DNA on his shorts, sealed his fate.
Emotions filled the room as the prosecution laid out the evidence against Hall, including DNA and fingerprints.
A swab of the steering wheel of the victim's car provided a match to Mr. Hall's DNA with a statistic of 1 in 5.255.
Each piece of clothing Edwin wore during the incident was meticulously bagged as he tried to get rid of the evidence. But lucky for him, those too were found and used against him. After Edwin's arrest, he pleaded guilty to the crimes, and the court proceedings moved swiftly, culminating in his sentencing on September 16, 2008, a mere 15 months after Kelsey's tragic murder.
I miss my house. I miss her laughter. her smile, her loudness. I miss my baby girl.
Edwin admitted to 4 charges, including capital murder, aggravated kidnapping, rape, and aggravated sodomy. The courtroom crackled with tension as both Kelsey's family and Edwin addressed the court.
Being the predator, he is now the prey.
Hall's lawyers said the defendant's years of abuse as a child were not an excuse, but an explanation. But the only sympathy the Smiths have is for Hall's young son.
My only satisfaction is knowing that you'll forever spend the rest of your life behind those bars. Never will you get to see the kind of man your son could have become. Forever he will have to live the consequences with the consequences you chose and made for him.
I will continue to pray for God to protect that little boy. He is going to need it.
Despite attempts by the defense to attribute his actions to a troubled upbringing, Edwin received a harsh sentence of life without parole, ensuring he would never again walk free.
I'm so sorry for what I've done. That's it. That's all I can say.
Sadly, while this brought some semblance of closure, Kelsey's family remained haunted by their loss.
Not really a victory, but it is justice. And justice isn't always fair. If it was fair, we'd get Kelsey back.
But that wasn't the end of Kelsey's story.
That you get over. You go through it for the rest of your life.
We will move forward, not on. People keep saying, when will you move on? We'll never move on. We just keep moving forward.
Turning their grief into action, Kelsey's family founded the Kelsey Smith Foundation in July 2007, just a month after her death. Their mission? To empower families, friends, and communities to safeguard youth and young adults, using Kelsey's legacy to promote vigilance and safety awareness. Thankfully, their efforts were not in vain as they led to the passage of the Kelsey Smith Act in April 2009, first in Kansas and later in over 29 states. This law required phone companies to release location information to law enforcement in emergencies, and since its initiation, it has saved countless lives. Greg Smith, Kelsey's father, also embarked on a political journey, serving terms in both the Kansas House and Senate. His focus, as expected, was on victims' rights and legislation to prevent similar tragedies. Today, Kelsey's legacy thrives through the tireless work of the foundation and the countless lives touched by her story. Her family finds solace in knowing that her death has led to meaningful change, empowering others to protect themselves. Despite the pain of their loss, they draw strength from Kelsey's memory, grateful for the opportunity to turn tragedy into action and safeguard others from similar fates. But what do you think about the case? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe.